TRC as an instrument of reconciliation. 1. Introduction. The Republic of South Africa is a constitutional democracy founded on the values of justice, reconciliation, human rights, and human dignity. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission, TRC, played a vital role in promoting these values. However, due to its formation, methodology, and the persistent legacy of apartheid injustices that continue to shape society, the TRC has been the subject of extensive study and debate. This paper evaluates the TRC process and its legacy in promoting reconciliation and peace building in South Africa. Finally, using insights from the South African Reconciliation Barometer (SARB) report of 2020, recommendations are offered to enhance reconciliation and peace in the country. 2. Context. Under apartheid, Afrikaner national ideology, culture, and economic interests were promoted at the exclusion of black people in economic, political, and social spheres. Race functioned as a foundational tool of oppression. Africans were denied access to education, employment, legal equality, freedom of movement, and freedom of association. These human rights violations were deeply entrenched in state law and culturally indoctrinated, particularly among white citizens. Liberation movements, such as the ANC and PAC, emerged to resist these injustices. Over time, the struggle became armed and violent. The apartheid regime deemed these movements communists and responded with covert, brutal tactics, including abductions, torture, and executions. These practices inflicted severe physical, psychological, and economic harm on victims in society. These legacies created major obstacles for social cohesion and reconciliation during the transition to democracy in the early 1990s. South Africa was a deeply divided and wounded nation. The democratic ANC-led government inherited these challenges and confronted large-scale inequality and poverty, especially in former homelands and townships. By 2014, a World Bank report classified South Africa as one of the most unequal societies in the world. Hedley and Kobe, 2017-2. Persistent structural exclusions continued to deepen social divisions. Incidents of racism and social fragmentation occur frequently, and protests such as Fees Must Fall and Roads Must Fall reflect the enduring legacy of apartheid. Hedley and Kobe, 2017-7. 3. Truth and Reconciliation Commission. The TRC was South Africa's first formal peace-building mechanism established to address gross human rights violations, deep social divisions, and historical injustices. Its process included 1. Investigating human rights violations and the nature of past conflicts. 2. Gathering testimonies and full disclosure of relevant information covering 1960 to 1994. 3. Offering amnesty for perpetrators who fully disclose their actions, and recommending rehabilitation and reparations for victims. The broader aim of the TRC was national reconciliation, the formation of a shared national identity, and a collective vision for the future. Many scholars view the TRC as a peace-building initiative. Malulik, 2001, chaired by Archbishop Desmond Tutu. The commission commenced on the 16th of December, 1995, and released its final report in April 2002. It prioritized restorative rather than retributive justice. Truth through full disclosure formed the basis for amnesty decisions. Outcomes of the TRC include recognition of victims, the creation of a collective national memory, public exposure of apartheid atrocities, and space for ordinary people to share their stories. For a TRC approach, the TRC is often contrasted with the Nuremberg trials, where human rights violators were prosecuted through victor's justice. Such an approach was unsuitable for South Africa because no clear victor or loser existed. It would have risked revenge, civil conflict, and further division in the fragile new democracy. Tutu, 1999. Others suggested a Chile-style blanket amnesty, but this would have produced impunity and silenced victims. Without truth-telling or justice, reconciliation would have been impossible. The TRC adopted a unique approach, conditional amnesty in exchange for truth. This enabled the exposure of apartheid crimes, recovery of missing persons' remains, and investigation of violations committed by liberation movements. Tutu 1999 argues that truth-telling acknowledges the suffering of victims and affirms their humanity and dignity. Truth, therefore, becomes a catalyst for healing and restoration. 5. Critiques of the TRC. Bozek 2008, Banding 647, argues that the TRC subtly coerced forgiveness and did not adequately provide victims with space to express anger. Forgiveness, he states, is a deeply personal act and cannot be demanded. Expressing justified anger can help perpetrators recognize the extent of their wrongdoing and foster genuine reconciliation. Some critics claim the TRC compromised justice and failed to deliver full accountability. However, as Bozak 2008-637 notes, perfect justice is unattainable. Compromises were necessary to achieve the larger goal of healing the nation and restoring public trust. Bozek 2008, Banding 650, also argues that the TRC narrowly emphasized individual accountability while neglecting corporate accountability. Many businesses supported the apartheid regime and benefited economically. However, this was largely because the TRC received a limited mandate that excluded business accountability. Vander Merwe and Sensabaugh, 2017-650. Others argue that reparations were insufficient. The government paid only a fraction of the amount recommended by the TRC, limiting the impact of rehabilitation. Some critics contend that TRC was too Christian in tone, given Tutu's leadership. Boatman, 225 While South Africa is multi-religious, the process should be judged by its outcomes, rather than the religious identity of individual leaders. Another critique is the Commission's limited, temporal, and thematic scope, focusing on 1960 to 1994 and primarily on gross violations, not everyday racism or labor injustices. These critiques are valid, but the TRC was not designed as an all-purpose solution. It was the initial phase of a broader peace-building trajectory. 6. TRC legacy. The TRC should not be viewed as a solution to all national problems, but rather as the first phase of a long-term peace-building process. Numerous state bodies such as the Justice System, Department of Social Development, Department of Home Affairs, and the Human Rights Commission and private institutions carry forward elements of the TRC's mandate. The TRC is best understood not as a messiah figure that resolves all injustices, but as a prophetic voice announcing the need for ongoing restoration. It laid the intellectual, moral, and ethical foundation for continued reconciliation efforts. Vander Merwe and Sensabaugh, 2017-29. In this sense, reconciliation becomes a present-future commitment. The TRC remains an internationally respected symbol of justice and peace, and its spirit of Ubuntu continues to inform academic research, governmental programs, and community initiatives. Mandela and Tutu embodied reconciliation, forgiveness, and justice, and their leadership shaped the success of the TRC. Malulik, 2001-198. 1. Honest confrontation with the past. South Africans, both black and white, must confront historical injustices. In the spirit of Ubuntu, more spaces for mutual dialogue and shared mourning are necessary. Gaboto Madikizela, 2012. Tutu, 1999. 2. Reject racial ideologies. Persistent racialist categories of blackness and whiteness that divide society should be publicly challenged. South Africans must embrace a shared national identity rooted in common humanity. 3. Support sustainable development and reduce inequality. Government initiatives, such as the National Development Plan and Rural Development Plan, must be supported and strengthened. Communities should be empowered to initiate local development to reduce poverty and urban migration. Noble and Wright, 2013. 4. Strengthen state institutions. In line with the IEP 2020, citizens and private entities must support efforts to strengthen the criminal justice system, fight corruption, and ensure broader access to economic resources. 5. Address new and emerging challenges. Issues such as COVID-19, climate change, crime, and global economic pressures widen inequality. Citizens must respond collectively and adaptively to these evolving threats. Schensel and Heller, 2011. 6. Learn from the past. South Africans must draw from historical lessons and resources, such as the TRC, to build a peaceful future. 7. Youth engagement. Young people should study the history of the TRC and form modern reconciliation forums to promote unity and social cohesion. 7. Conclusion. The apartheid system and its gross human rights violations necessitated the creation of the TRC. The Commission has left a powerful legacy in promoting reconciliation and restoring dignity, though it has also faced significant critiques. Importantly, reconciliation is an ongoing process. The work of the TRC continues through the involvement of citizens, government institutions, and civil society committed to peace building for the betterment of humanity.